Peace everyone, welcome back to the Drawing Journal, and today I'll be talking a little bit about how to think in 3 dimensions. Alright, so last week I got a question about how to draw 3-dimensionally, specifically referring to people's faces and things like that. And that, like I mentioned last week, it really deserves a whole tutorial in itself, and in the future I might do something like that. However, today I'm just going to give you some general tips on how to approach these things so it can kind of make drawing people and pretty much anything a lot easier. When it comes to thinking about things in three dimensions, or drawing things in 3 dimensions, you first have to be able to visualize it in your mind. So one of the drawing techniques that I think every artist should take the time to study and learn, even just a little bit, is how to use perspective, like 2-point, 3-point, or even 1-point perspective. And in the future, I do plan on doing a tutorial on how to do a 2-point perspective. I think it's more fun to just skip 1-point perspective and just go right to 2-point perspective because it makes a lot more sense. 1-point perspective is pretty restricted in terms of how to draw things. And so I think 2-point perspective is broad enough, but not too overly complicated that you can just skip 1-point perspective and just go right to 2-point perspective. But anyway, so here's a few things that you can do, practice when it comes to drawing or thinking about things in 3 dimensions. You want to be able to take any shape. This is a good example. This is a Rubik's Cube that I have, and it's obviously a cube. So a good way to practice thinking of things in 3 dimensions and drawing things in 3 dimensions is take a simple shape like a cube. And you want to be able to, without reference, replicate a cube on your paper in 3 dimensions from any perspective. And so let's just start with just one cube, okay? So I pick an edge, and you can draw a face of the cube. Just draw a square. Start with a square. We'll do something really simple. Now, let's say that I want to be looking down into the left of this cube. So it's supposed to be below me, and I'm to the right of it. So draw these lines back for the cube. And there we go. That is a cube. And then if I make it translucent or clear, then you can see how that goes there. So you need to be able to replicate a cube from any angle. That's the first thing that you can do to start practicing 3D and drawing 3D, because you can build things from cubes, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But the next thing, so just for the beginning, practice with just a cube. I know it seems a bit elementary, but I think it's a really important thing to know how to do without having to second guess yourself. So I'm going to draw another cube, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to make the angle a bit different. Actually, let me think here. I'm going to use this cube, and I'm simply going to change the angle just by changing my lines. Now, I drew it originally looking down at it. And now I'm just going to erase a few lines, and you're going to see that you're going to be looking up at this cube now. So now we're looking up at the cube. And all I did was change the lines. So these are tricks and illusions that you can practice creating with the cube, and now we'll go on to a different perspective. You can start here, and you can draw the cube from the side like this, perfectly from the side, looking down at it. Just like that. But if I draw it so that it's clear, and if I do the same trick I did here, I can just change these lines. So I was looking down at it before, and now I'm just going to erase a couple lines, and it will change the perspective of the cube. Now I'm looking up at the cube. These are things you have to be able to do. Working with a cube is super easy. If you work with different objects, like say kind of a triangular prism or something like that, you have that shape. That's I can erase this line here, and it changes the angle in which I'm looking, changes the perspective. So now I'm looking down at it, and you can just practice this with all kinds of shapes. If you have this cube, choosing the distance from this line to this line determines whether or not you see this as a cube. If I were to extend these lines out, say the distance of 2 cubes, then obviously I no longer will have a cube, but I'll have a rectangle or rectangular prism. So the same rules that apply to the cube apply to this rectangular prism. Similar to this triangular prism, you can extend these lines, and of course it will look longer. When you get into more complex shapes, like let's say, actually, let me do this. Say a pyramid. This requires a little bit more perspective. So now I have a pyramid, and you should be able to rotate this image all around. And the thing that you'll notice about a shape like this is that you still have this square base, and what you can change about the perspective of this shape is you can manipulate that square base, and you can turn this pyramid around. And the only thing that you need to concern yourself with is the perspective of that square or rectangle base. Similar to a cylinder shape, you only concern yourself with the shape of the circle faces of the cylinder. See, I'm looking down at this cylinder. I'm not trying to draw these perfect. I'm just trying to describe what you're looking for. So this make it clear. So these are circles, and when you look at this, the optical illusion that you're seeing is that these are circles. The reason you see these as circles is because you know what a cylinder looks like, similar to this pencil sharpener here. You know that this is a circle here, and when I turn it, even though you don't see a circle anymore, you know it's a circle. And that's the kind of tricks that your eyes and mind play on you. And so if I simply draw a circle, sorry, I like perfect circles. If I draw a circle and I try to turn this into a cylinder like this, then there's nothing to draw. I'm just looking straight down at the cylinder. However, when I turn this, if I turn this circle like this, angle it at your eyes, you know it's a circle, but what it turns into is an ellipse, which is a circle in perspective. It's pretty difficult to draw ellipses freehanded, but so when this circle starts to turn, it turns into this ellipse, and this is where you get these circles. These are ellipses here, and there's tricks to drawing perfect ellipses, or somewhat freehanded, almost perfect freehanded ellipses. However, I'm not going to go into that detail, but these shapes, you need to be able to draw these shapes without thinking. You need to be able to imagine what they look like, turning them in your mind. And you take a few shapes like this, and let's look at this doesn't necessarily apply directly to drawing people. However, if you can't think of these shapes three-dimensionally, then you're going to struggle a lot thinking about people's faces or hands. Hands is a really good one, because you think of each segment of your finger as a small cylinder like this, and if you can't draw a cylinder, well, then you can't draw hands very well. There's plenty of tricks that people have come up with to simplify drawing hands. You know, you got the shovel shape, the thumb joint, and then the 4 knuckles for the fingers. These fingers are normally together, and then the gaps occur here. So these are tricks that you'll learn drawing hands, of course. But usually the things that seem really simple, they're not that simple. You can't really draw hands with this technique without being able to kind of think about hands three-dimensionally in the first place, because obviously this shovel shape for hands doesn't stay a shovel if you turn it. So but let's look at something a bit simpler. Let's look at a nose. So I'm going to draw a nose from the side view, and you're just going to think of, we're just going to simplify this nose. Let's make this flat here. That's a little bit more of a nose. So it's kind of this triangle shape, but we're gonna cut the tip of the triangle off because that's a little bit more nose shape, right? And I'm gonna turn this so that you're facing forward. So this triangle is just going to turn into a rectangle with a small square here. This turned 90 degrees facing forward. And then, of course, if you wanted to make it a little bit more, you could add circles here. That's a little bit more of a nose shape. And then, of course, the circles would be here. These circles would be spheres, obviously. But let's turn this just 3/4 of the way. And this is where being able to think of these shapes three-dimensionally makes life a lot easier when breaking down a nose into shapes. So turning it 3/4, we're still going to have this line here. But if I'm drawing a triangle, so now I'm going to have a top. This is going to come down, this is going to come down, and let's just work with the triangle for now. Now this is right on the horizon line because these lines are flat, right? So everything's flat right now. It's just turning. I'm going to have the sphere right here, but look what the sphere, this line is coming through the sphere. Because if I were to put the sphere here, it would look like it's inside. Now, this is part of thinking three-dimensionally, and like I said, this takes practice and patience. But I also have this cutoff piece, so I can cut off that little square here, and I know that this is going to come down. Clean those lines up a little bit so maybe you can see it. I know I probably should have drawn this a bit bigger, but this is turning into a little bit more of a tutorial than what I expected. And of course, if I draw this invisible line here, I know that this other sphere is about right here. You barely see it. You barely see the sphere on the other side. But this shape can easily be turned into a nose, you know? So let me just sketch a nose here real quick. It's not going to be like a pretty nose by any means, but so I have this here, and just erase these lines. Yeah, so it's not the prettiest nose, but you can see that from those shapes, I was able to create a nose. So from this side here, obviously, it's going to be a bit different. There, just add a little bulge there. Side view here. Just round that off and there. From those couple shapes, real simple, basic shapes, I was able to determine what the shape of this nose would look like as it turns. And yeah, so that is the quick tip. What is that? That only took the entire video, so I'm actually not going to do anything else in this video. I was going to draw a little bit in my sketchbook, but that turned into almost an entire tutorial in itself. I will do another one of these in the future, much more detailed. And like I mentioned, I will do a tutorial on perspective. So if any of this stuff kind of didn't make sense on how I was able to do it, I'll do a tutorial on perspective. But that will be it for this video. So I hope that some of these tips were helpful. If you have any more questions on this stuff, I'll try to answer them in the comments the best that I can. Sometimes visually is the only way to describe this stuff. Trying to type out the answer to some of the questions would be a bit much, but hopefully this is helpful, giving you some general tips on how to start thinking in 3 dimensions and things like that. It's definitely worth practicing. And real quick, I just want to thank everybody that is supporting me on Patreon. It's really helpful. I'm up to 5 patrons now, so I'm really grateful for everybody that helps support me. This will be my last drawing journal for a little while, unless I decide to do another one in a day or two, because at the end of this week, I will be leaving. I will be on my way to Poland. I don't know how long it's going to take me to set up once I'm there. So I do have a video that, I do have a time lapse for this Thursday. I might try to do one more video depending on how much I have left to do as far as getting ready to move. If you can see the picture, it's this picture right here that I did. It's probably kind of blurry, but anyways, yeah, that time lapse will be available Thursday. So be sure to check that out. And I will see you all hopefully not too long from now. All right, so take care. Peace.